Missions Pulse. Know God's heart, join His mission.
In the Western church, it's not like we're low on good worship,
No.
right? There's great worship. So what are you saying? We need to get back to something. What I see movements of worship and it seems to me adoration of Jesus, but there are elements lacking that go beyond. Is it that we live in a non-communal kind of culture that is it's so individualistic? Our worship is about me and my heart and Jesus, the direct access.
Definitely, that's an aspect of it, yes.
I guess what I'm saying is I see this happening.
Yeah.
You're saying we need to return to
Yeah.
it. Return to what? Isn't it
Yeah.
happening already?
Yeah.
Why isn't mission happening?
Yeah, I think the forms are happening.
Okay.
So the services are all there. We have in our Christian kind of makeup and routines, we have the meetings. We know that we don't go and do this, and there's a level of heart passion for that.
Yes.
But what I think we're saying is it has to come back to the way that Jesus defined discipleship in the Gospels, and that's often not talked very much about. So
yeah.
it's this idea, like you say, of okay, it's me and Jesus in my worship time, and that's good. But then what do you do when you leave the worship time? So
Correct.
let me give a brief example. Before we started SVM2, right when I graduated from Fuller, and we kind of knew we were looking at this mission mobilization thing. Luis Bush and several other of my mentors at the time, they said, well, this is the right direction, but you need some data. You need some information to kind of find out what's happening among the student generation related to mission. So they were able to raise some foundation money, sent me out to do a research project all over the U.S., parts of South America, parts of Asia, parts of Africa,
Oh, cool.
kind of meeting with key leaders and talking about all these different things. So in the U.S. context, this came up time after time, this new worship movement, because this was early 2000s
Yeah.
when some things were really
Kevin
kind of
Cross
getting
was on
going.
fire.
Absolutely, all these worship, and they still are going on. And so I would ask these campus ministry staff leaders about this, and tell me about this because it's the same thing. And I was shocked at how many of them told me how superficial that is. So it's meaning, okay, we have the forms and we know how to kind of have our hearts tuned towards Jesus, but then when you leave the prayer meeting or the worship meeting and go onto the campus to kind of do your life, it often isn't being applied at that level. So it's kind of those in the church, I know how to act and I'm hungry for God there, but it's not transitioning into my life, which again, in my reading of Scripture, that's not Jesus' kind of discipleship at all.
No, he was always hanging out with the wrong kind of folk.
Yeah, absolutely. And so there's a disconnect there, I think, with the application maybe. So the worship stuff is there, and so you'd think, but there's some disconnect.
Well, maybe there are some aspects of living in kind of that non-communal, non-community,
Yes.
honor-shame kind of culture.
Yeah.
Also, I think that we have been taught that we are in the world, but we are not of it for so long that we forgot that Jesus sends us back into. I recently had a guest on here.
Yeah.
She told us it was the audacity of God. Jenny Sue Jessen, she's the author of The Lucky One, and she was telling this story about how she was rescued from being trafficked at a young age, 4 years old, in the sex trade, and years later finally gets rescued out of this. Radical transformation, has this heart for God, and suddenly what does he do? He sends her back into the deepest, darkest pit of the sex trade. Wow. And she said, what the audacity of God to do that. We think we're in the world, but not of it. And so we're so separated that we cannot influence culture.
Yes.
Whereas Jesus says, no, yes, you are not of it because you're uniquely set apart as a priesthood.
Yeah.
I'm sending you back into it. Doesn't light shine best in the darkness?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And we don't have a lot of that element going on right now.
Whereas maybe others in the global south, you're probably experiencing
there's a zeal for that. There's a real zeal for that.
Missions Pulse. Know God's heart, join His mission. This podcast is powered by Within Reach Global. Subscribe, watch, and listen on YouTube today. Visit missionspulse.com.